Okay, finally, just a theory lecture to introduce you to a new concept, which is Schema Registry. Unfortunately, there won't be any demo for this, but I want you to know that it exists so you can dig deeper if you need to. So Kafka, as you know, takes bytes as an input and publishes them as an output, and there is no data verification. You might as well have a producer produce whatever data to Kafka, and many applications receiving these bytes as is. But so because there's no data verification, what if the producer sends bad data? Or what if a field gets renamed? Or what if the data format changes from one day to another? Well, something happens, your consumers will break, and that's really, really bad. So we need a schema registry. We need data to be self-describable. We need to be able to evolve data without breaking downstream consumers. So we need schemas and a schema registry. Now, thankfully, there's two ways we could do this, right? What if the Kafka brokers instead were verifying the messages they receive, right? Why not? Why can't they do this? Well, if you do this, that would break what makes Kafka so good. Kafka is really good because it doesn't even parse or look at your data. And so it doesn't consume any CPU. It just receives bytes and sends bytes. And that's basically optimization called zero copy to just take bytes very quickly and send them off is what makes Kafka so good. Okay, so as far as Kafka is concerned, it doesn't even know that your data is an integer, a string, a JSON document, an Avro document, whatever. Kafka doesn't know anything. Kafka just gets data, sends data, and doesn't even know about the format of the data. So basically, the schema registry has to be a separate component. And your producers and consumers, they need to be able to talk to it. And the schema registry must be able to say to the producers or consumer that what you're about to send is bad data. So finally, a data format must be agreed upon, and it needs to support schema, make it able to evolve your schemas, and be lightweight. So thankfully, all these things exist already, and Confluent, the creators of Kafka, have created something called the Confluent Schema Registry. And it shows Apache Avro as the data format. So there's good reasons for them to do this, and it's quite a good component. It's open source, it's free, and you can get started today if you wanted to. So here's what a pipeline looks like without the schema registry. This is what we've been doing from before. We have Kafka, source systems, producers, sending it to target systems through consumers. Very, very simple. Now, when we have a schema registry, we want to be able to store and retrieve schema for producers and consumers. We want to be able to enforce backward, forward, or full compatibility on topics. We want to decrease the size of the payload if possible. So here's what it looks like. We have Kafka and the schema registry. Our producer will send Avro content to Kafka, and it will send the schema to the schema registry. Finally, your consumers will get the schema from the schema registry and read Avro content. And that's actually super efficient because the schema being sent is sent once and the schema being retrieved is really retrieved once. So overall, the data flows through Kafka in Avro, and the schema registry is your safeguard against bad data or breaking schemas. So that's a high-level overview of how you should see it. To me, in production, in companies, I encourage them to start with the schema registry as it's free, it's open source, it's super easy to run, and it really gives you massive advantages. Now, if you're interested, here's a few gotchas. Utilizing a schema has a lot of benefits, but you need to set it up well. You need to make sure your schema registry is highly available, and you need to change your producer and consumer code. To me, changing the producer and the consumer code changes to the better things. It's a bit more complicated, but it's also more safe. And to me, it's well worth the time to invest. Now, you can't use JSON anymore as your format. You'll have to use Apache Avro. And Apache Avro is, to me, is awesome. It's even lighter than JSON. It's really efficient, but it has a small learning curve. As I said, the schema registry is free and open source, so you can look online and look by the creators of Confluent, which is the ones who created Kafka. Okay, so it's just to give you an idea of how things work. What I really want you to remember is this slide in which you understand how a schema registry works in Kafka if you were to use one and make such decision. So I hope that was helpful for developers, and I will see you in the next lecture.